Welcome to Willow Healing Matters, the podcast. We are so excited to have you joining us on this journey where we explore different ways to empower your soul, whether it's healing in your kitchen or all the way up in the corporate world. Come with us as we look into different ways to heal your mind, body, and soul.
My virtual obsession, my romantic thriller, is now available on Amazon and other online retailers. This book explores the intersection of loneliness, love, and how chasing perfection through technology can lead to fantasy and reality colliding. My virtual obsession out now.
Hey everyone, it's Crestani with another episode of Willow Healing Matters, and I am joined again by the delightful Barbara Lee Whip. She has been on our show before. Her episode came out in October last year, and I'll make sure to include a link to the show notes. But for those of you who are new to my world and just listening to my interview with Barbara for the first time, she's an international peace activist, an award-winning author and publisher, a psychic channel, composer and performer, and the co-founder of Conflict Revolution, World Peace, a one person at a time, starting with yourself, a revolutionary way to resolve conflicts of the psyche as a pathway to world peace based on her work channeling the angels and Albert Einstein. So big welcome back, Barbara.
Thank you so much, Catherine. I'm just so delighted to be chatting with you again.
Now, since we last spoke, you have had a lot happen in your life, but I feel the biggest thing that we were just quickly touching upon was you going to this World Science Fair in, was it Germany?
It was Barcelona.
Barcelona. Yes. So for those of you who aren't familiar, because Barbara channels Albert Einstein, she wrote this incredible book that was so well revered, correct me if I'm wrong, that she was invited to speak at this science synopsis and share the work at that level. And please continue that story.
Well, and just to give it context, the Science of Consciousness Conference, this was the 31st year, and it comes out of the University of Arizona Tucson Astrophysicist Department. So they started it 30-some years ago, and it was just scientists. And as they've pursued what is consciousness, quite naturally, the psychics and the psychologists and the roomy mass, everyone started to come to add. So on the 30th anniversary, I didn't actually speak. I just had a poster session where I had a big poster and stood there while people came or didn't come. So in Barcelona, it was actually the day I was speaking was one day shy of the actual 70th anniversary of Einstein's, not the one I channel. Well, I mean, they're the same, but the living Einstein's last manifesto, his last words were read on July 9th, 1955, probably a few months after he died, because he died in April. And so it was one day short of the 70th anniversary of Bertrand Russell delivering Einstein's message in London. And so here I was. And honestly, Catherine, I was so nervous and anxious, which is not like me. I get nervous, but I don't get like my hair falling out. And it was really curious to me. But what now in retrospect, as I've digested what's happened, it's just was huge. It was huge to stand there and deliver this unified field theory and the maps of human consciousness, and consciousness is the fifth fundamental force of the universe, to a lot of scientists. And when this sort of sums it up for me, I was expressing to them that 20 years ago when I was channeling this and Einstein was telling me these revolutionary ideas that I had no idea. I'm not a scientist. I'm a musician. All I wanted to be was a rock star. So I don't know if it's even feasible for the source to be in the center of the earth and to have it operate like a black hole. That's what he told me in 2005 as I was writing this book for him. And so all of these years later, I'm standing at this conference saying, I said, I don't even know if this is possible. And 3 people stood up and fist bumped. Yes, it's a black hole. Yes. And it was like after the entire experience, and I finally settled sort of back down to earth, I felt like my job was kind of done. And I don't mean I'm through completely, but I left the conference feeling like that is the culmination of all of the work that Einstein wanted me to do to bring forth this theory so he could get it into consciousness. And it's been a real change of life.
Yeah, because it's like, okay, we've achieved that project. What's next, right? What's the next evolution for Barbara?
Yes. And as I've kind of, it's taken a long time to adapt. I mean, I've done this work since 1987. I've been channeling. So it's part of who I am. And the project and the mission of Einstein and the angels and all of that has just been woven into the fabric of my life. And so I had to take this time to adjust. Who am I anymore than anyway, as we say in the psychic sorority? Who am I any more than anyway? And what happened was that space was filled quite with synchronicity. And that's another story of how I spent my winter, where it led me into the winter. And I live on an island in Lake Superior in northern Wisconsin. And for the past several winters, I've gone south to Georgia to spend time with my friend. And I was all ready to go. I had the house rented, and my friend could not accommodate me. She couldn't have me for circumstances that had come and stay with her for the winter. And so I was without a home or anywhere to go. Luckily, some very dear friends of mine invited me to come and live with them in Madison, Wisconsin. Wonderful people, very community. They have a big compound. It was really wonderful. And I had to get a job of some kind to do something. And I thought, working in a bookstore or teaching piano. And they are both union cab drivers. And this is not Uber.
Yeah,
This
I know.
is a worker-owned cooperative of taxi drivers who've been driving since 1979. And I really lit up with the ideas because I love to drive anyway. And I love meeting people. But I had absolutely no idea the spiritual nature of what that work is about. It almost became, to me, the difference between me sort of teaching and training and speaking and doing readings, which is a wonderful thing. But it's almost having to take all that and put it to use in the moment when you can't teach everybody who gets in your cab conflict resolution, but I can intentionally exude sort of, in a Christ consciousness. If I'm going to be here, I'm going to be, because a lot of the people that we drive are people with disabilities. There's homeless people getting out of the emergency room, people getting out of the hospital. So there's a real service-oriented piece of it. And I just finished the, 4 months of driving and interacting with the most amazing people, just ordinary people, and doing my whole, okay, I'm going to fill myself up with this love, and they're going to get in the cab, and maybe they don't want to talk, but they're going to feel it, and I'll be praying for them. And then there's other people who are so alone that when you just talk about fishing or what did you do, how did you get here? And it means so much to them. And these are people I never would have a chance to spend whatever it is, 15 minutes to sometimes you're driving them 2 hours away and interact. And so it's filled up this interesting space of spirituality in my life that I hadn't really anticipated. So
I love the mirror in this because my husband currently is a cab driver.
really,
And we have these discussions, yes. But also, I started working on a psychic hotline because I was like, I just have all these amazing gifts. And yes, I have clients, but I want to serve more people. And how can I do that really quickly? Surely there's some job for a psychic. So I literally searched psychic jobs Australia, and I ended up working on a psychic hotline. And then I was looking at, you can see all your statistics on the dashboard. And I was like, my goodness, I've had 150 calls since I started. Yes, some of them are repeat people. Some of them come back because they like what we're doing and the work that we're doing. But I was like, that is 150 more people potentially I have served than sitting there wondering what to do with my gifts. So very similar to how you find yourself in that cab conversation. It can even happen when you go buy coffee. I was picking up a takeaway drinks for some friends, and I was looking at this lady, and I said to her, it was she was, I think, maybe late teens or early 20s. I said, I'm sorry, are you a dancer? And she's like, how did you know that? And I said, I just keep seeing this image of you dancing. I said, but you're applying for the wrong jobs. I said, you need to do something different. She goes, I just started applying for like Broadway or like musicals. I said, pursue that. She's like, okay. And I was like, but it doesn't, like you said, it doesn't have to be this very formal, like, let's, book in for a call or like listening to you speak. Spirituality can happen in everyday moments if you allow it to. And if you allow, I guess, source to flow through you and give you the information you need in that moment.
And like in that example of you with that, it wasn't, hey, I'm a psychic and I've got information for you. It's how we seamlessly allow our gifts to be a part of just everyday interactions.
Yeah. Yeah. I feel it's such an important contrast because there's such this pull in the spiritual community where just because you have gifts means that you're very, a guru or you're very woo or, even I was on this call the other day and he's like, oh yeah, we've got this big project, but for those who are very well established in the spiritual place, it's free. But if you're not well established, you have to pay this astronomical fee. And I was like, shouldn't it be the other way around? Because the ones who are very established obviously have the income and they've figured out how to magnetize these opportunities and everything. But the ones who are trying to get the leg up are the ones that need the support to get there. But that's how I felt in that moment. And not everyone might see it that way. But at the same time, I'm like, why can't we just acknowledge everyone for their beautiful gifts or what they have to share in the world or what they need in that moment? Maybe they need to talk about fishing. Maybe they need to listen. Maybe it's psychic confessions with the cabbie or something. I don't know. Whatever it is.
Well, the ride that I picked up a man at the Veterans Hospital, and we had probably a 45-minute ride out to the country where he lived alone. I like to just let people be the lead. Like if somebody's not talking, I still surround them with the loving energy of me. But I kind of let them lead. We just started chatting. We were the ones talking about the fishing, and he got out and he looked at me and he said, I live alone and I don't ever talk to anyone. And a lot of the cabbies don't want to talk. And so you've made my whole entire week. And he hobbled into his little house in the middle of nowhere. And I thought, this is what it's about. But you don't have to be, I think we agree. It's not like anybody has to be gifted, like has to be a podcast host or famous channel. It's just something everybody can do every day as a way of life, I think.
Yeah. And it was funny what you said, like some people don't want to talk. My husband got this massive tip one day and the guy said, I'm tipping you because you actually didn't speak. And I really needed that silence.
See? It's like, it's not one or the other.
Yeah, exactly. And then, this other day, another person gave him this massive tip and he tried to give him change. The guy's like, no, keep it. I said, no, this is a lesson for you as well of just saying thank you because that person saw your value. And it's so important when you are given that money, however it comes, for you to actually just be grateful. I said, that for us is extra grocery money this week. Let's say thank you for that, and be appreciative of that. And, that goes from both ways. And, and he likes it when people talk, especially if it's a long trip, because he's like, keeps you awake, it keeps you engaged, otherwise it gets really, really boring. But at the same time, he can feel when people don't want to talk and he just lets that go too. So, that's just being human. I feel it's being good human, right? It's being present with the person and understanding their needs in the moment.
And in this day and age of so much technology, and I mean, I'm glad we have Zoom. I never would have met you without Zoom, but to have that kind of, I treasure it, that kind of human interaction, that spontaneous. And now I find myself, I've just come home. I've just traveled from the south to the north to come home again for the season. And I found myself all along the way just almost looking for strangers. You go into a coffee shop or you stop at the gas station just to be kind to, just to purposefully want to look at them and go, how are you today? Because so few people do that. It's free. Doesn't cost me anything.
I used to connect with random people on Instagram and actually genuinely take an interest in what they were doing and be curious about it. And it was amazing the different reactions I got. Like some of them would be like, I don't want to buy anything off you. I'm like, I'm not selling anything.
Yeah.
I'm just genuinely love the work that you're doing. Okay, or I'm genuinely curious, or, I had this one lady go off at me and she's like, why are you asking me these questions? And I said, well, actually, I have a podcast and I was considering if you'd be a suitable guest, but you already answered my question. So I guess not.
Thank you.
And yeah, thank you. Or I'd have some like just genuinely appreciate being seen. Because sometimes, when you post something and you don't, you post and you post and you post and you post and you think it's not getting to anybody. Sometimes it's nice to know that the message landed. And then the same, like being curious about strangers. Like, what does it cost to smile? I like smiling at strangers because sometimes you never know, that smile might change the trajectory of their day. You never know how that will go.
You
Yeah.
don't know, and I find more times than not it does. That's
Yeah.
my informal experience over the past 4 months. It's like when I sincerely can look somebody in the eye with that smile and know that it makes a difference for people.
100%. 100%. I guess it's another act of service, right? This is like another form of service, but on the ground level, because so often we just, want to awaken people, but sometimes people just need to be met where they're at and allow themselves to be seen in that moment. And that can be enough to start awakening, or it can be enough for them to actually realize, hey, people see me. And that's important too.
Well, and there's the other side of the coin that I've been experiencing recently is I've been working in readings and face to face with pretty high level thinkers and healers and practitioners, and there's a theme that's running through, and it's that sometimes people who do this, like you and like I, because we know so much, we understand so much, we really do have a capacity to understand how things work, what it means. And that's a different skill than putting it to work in our lives. And I've come across several situations like this of pretty evolved people kind of suffering because one of the responses is, I do this. I meditate. I do my yoga. I do my prayers. I try to do all this stuff. And it's like, that's all well and good. But when it comes to this time, when we're really dealing with deep emotion, self-doubt, all of that, this is where the rubber meets the road for us too, is how we put it to use on ourselves and not just walk around talking about it and talking, showing how much we intellectually understand it. And that's a big difference. I've seen people really start to go, okay, and be able to make some headway into that personal transformation. So if anybody out there is going through that, it's something to consider.
The next thing they're trying to shake off, the next veil they're trying to shake through. Yeah, it's interesting. What was I going to say with that? No, it's gone. It's back. It's gone. It's back. Because I can see timelines and see people's highest timelines. I can see my own highest timeline, but then I get really impatient because, because time isn't linear, really, but I can see it happening right now, but it might be a year from now. So then I get really frustrated and I'm like, why isn't this happening? And the universe is like, soon it will happen. I'm like, what soon?
Exactly. What soon? Your soon or my soon?
It was like the previous guest I had just before you. We were talking about this. She goes, my guides never give me timelines. They always say soon. I'm like, so do mine.
They have a phrase, time is not our forte.
Really?
Like, we can tell you some time, but it's probably not going to be right. And then they'll tell us something, but they've
I have to, like, working on the psychic hotline, I have to give the preface because people want timelines. They want to be able to control it and they want to know this is when the outcome's going to happen and this is when it's going to be and da, 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 da. But what I ended up starting to do was saying, okay, I can't give you an exact timeline because if I do that, then if it happens faster, you've missed it. If it happens slower, you've missed it. And if you're aiming and making your whole thing like, oh, they're going to show up in a month, my dream person's going to show up in a month, you might just miss them because you're too focused on this date and you miss the outcome. And so what I started asking for instead was, can you give me a percentage of around the date? So like they'll say, okay, there's a 90% chance that it will be within a month. So then they're not absoluting it and they don't get fixated on it. Because this is what, we try and explain, that we all have free will. We all have this ability to shift our reality, to shift timelines. At any point you make a choice, you're making a shift, right? So then if you're asking with a relationship on the other side of that, well, or a career or something like that, there are other people involved. There's like, it might be 100 working pieces just so you can get that position, or just so that you can meet Mr. Right in that exact moment, or whatever it might be. So when you ask for a timeline, it's very constrictive, and you're almost putting a timeline on yourself and conditioning the universe. Like, okay, well, if it's not in this month, then it's just not going to happen.
Right.
Yeah.
Which affects the manifestation.
Exactly.
People don't. I have a story about it. It was I remember the date of the channel. It was August 16th, 1994. It was me and Kim and Teresa, the psychic sorority. We had been working together on this incredible stuff, and we did a reading. And they said, and we quoted it for years, and it was odd because time is not our forte. They said something big is about to happen. If we had to pick a date, we'd say September 19th. So this was August 16th. And so, it was like 9 months of work together. We'd been only working together for 9 months. And okay, that must mean we're going to be on Oprah next month. And every year, September 19th would come around and we call each other up, go, if we had to pick a date. And nothing happened until 2001. And it was 9/11. They said September 19th. And they've always said time was not our forte. So that was something super big. And I thought, wow, see, it took from 1994 to 2001 for this one timeline to take place. But no, that wasn't it. It was in 2007 when, long story short, I was invited to speak at this conference in Taos, New Mexico with the Crimson Circle called Quantum Leap. And it was the biggest. I was going to be channeling Einstein live internationally to maybe 250,000 people.
That's something big.
I got there and I was sitting there slurping my martini, looking at the program. And again, I thought it started on September 18th. So that's what I had in my mind. I was scheduled for the 19th. So when you can give it up, or you can keep it alive until it could be decades.
Could be decades. And I feel this is the thing, and I've learned too, like when we start to condition how our life should show up or how spirit should show up for us, we won't get that.
No, we shut it down.
No, we shut it down. Or when we get time frames, when they don't happen, then we get disappointed and we lose hope, or or it might be a little bit different, or whatever it might be. At one point, I started to I was just walking around my local town, and I walked past this person. They're like 6 months to live. I'm like, what was that? And then I walked past another person, 2 years. And then I started getting them for my family. And I'm like, what is happening here? And I got one for my grandmother, and it was, she's not going to make it, like she's going to die soon. They originally said it was before the end of the year. So we got past the end of the year, and I thought, okay, something shifted. And my husband's like, oh, see, it didn't happen. 2 months later, she did die. She was brought back to life. Like she full on coded, left this world, came back to life. And I was like, she did die. Then my husband's like, but the time wasn't right. I said, no, but they gave me the timeline to prepare me for when it did come. Because sometimes we can't get fixated on the information, but it's more just so your soul can get ready for it to come through. But then it stopped after that. I didn't keep getting timelines for people. So sometimes we hear it early to prepare us, but like you said, decades ahead, like you just kind of forget about it by then. It's not going to happen.
And then when it comes about, and I think like with your grandmother, I think that would have been too much of an onus if you had said, and then she died on like 31st, or you know what I mean? It's like it would be just too much for you to have to bear. Like you said, it prepared you for.
Yeah. The craziest one that happened was I had this very prophetic dream, and my nono was very unwell at the time as well, and he came forward. So nono was Italian for grandfather, and he came forward in this dream, and He was, for some reason, we were at my great grandmother's house, which was on the other side of the family. I don't know. That's just where we were. And then he said, I want to go to the park. I want to go sit on the bench. And I was like, oh, okay, well, I'll start walking you up. And my dad's like, okay, I'll look up the house. And I said, well, my car's closer. I'll take him to my car and then we'll drive. Anyway, on the way to my car, he collapsed. And my dad ran up and I knew he was gone. Like, I just knew he was leaving. The angels showed up. My nonna showed up, my grandmother, everyone was there ready to take him. And I went into this automatic process in my dream of releasing his soul. This shamanic ritual just automatically went into it, knew how to do it. I never heard about it before, never knew it, just knew what to do. And my dad's like, I'll call an ambulance. I said, you can. I said, but you need to say goodbye. Like he's going, And so I released it. And then the ambulance arrived in like time of death, whatever time it was. And I woke up and that was the time on my clock. And then my guides went, if it happens, you're going to get a phone call before 8 o'clock, but they didn't specify the morning or the evening. I was like, okay. So like I'm there and it goes 8 o'clock in the morning and then it went through. And then like my husband's like, just call your dad and see what's going on. And what had come through after that dream was I got a message from my dad and my uncle. And I wrote it down and I just left it because it was from my grandfather. And then my dad said, no, he's the healthiest he's ever been today. He's the happiest and healthiest he's ever been. And I was like, my goodness. But fast forward, it was about a year and a half later, maybe a little bit, maybe, I don't know, something like that. A year later, it was 6 o'clock in the morning and my mum rings, your grandfather's passed away. But I knew the week before because I'd just seen my dad and he was really unwell. And I'm like, this is it. This is the end. But I'd seen him in between that and actually physically done it. And it turned out the week after I had this dream, I picked up this book called Shaman Healer Sage. And in the back of it was the process of how to release a soul when someone's about to leave this plane and allow the soul to leave easier. So I had to do that in my dream so he could pass the messages on. But then I also did it in real life so that his soul could just move on like a lot easier. But again, timelines, right? But the time thing, that freaked me out. That absolutely freaked me out.
I bet.
Yes.
It's like, okay.
Exactly.
Wow. That's so beautiful, though. That's so beautiful.
Yeah. But again, didn't put a time frame on it, just knew it was there, kept those messages for my dad and my uncle. And then the day he passed, I knew it was time to give that to my dad and my uncle. And I did.
Yeah, definitely. And I've been doing some sort of extracurricular communication with, there was a young man in the United States named Charlie Kirk who was murdered. He was assassinated. And he came to me right after he passed and wanted me to get a message to someone famous who he loved and was with. And I said, no, let's wait. Get me in front of her is usually what I say when somebody says, I need to get a message to someone. Well, get me in front of her or get me a way to contact. And so for all the winter, and she's doing this quite a public investigation into his murder. And it's just been fascinating to wait and then see, as talk about the timeline of what she's discovering through all of this. And so finally in March, I said, okay, I'll sit down and do a session with you if you want, and we'll see what you have to say and how I could get it to her. I'm not a famous person. And he was very reluctant to speak through me like Einstein does and others. So I did Charlie says this, Charlie says that. And maybe about a week and a half later, he came and he said, I'm really ready now. And so he called it inhabitation. I'm ready to inhabit you. It's like, okay. And I still have been sitting with it because I don't know why. I just feel like it's such a big thing. And I should just say I'm being intuitively guided. So there's no rush to try to force it or get it. But I'm about to do a third one, and I think that one's going to be the one that is articulate to the point where I feel like, okay, this is what you will hear, and you will know. You'll know not because I'm telling you it's true or it's him. You'll know it's him. It's like, how does this happen to us? Do other
Um,
people get visited by?
Well, what I'm getting for you is that the invitation to share the information hasn't come forward, and you're not going to push it on people, right? Because as people can choose to have it or not. This is the this is the thing when we're psychic mediums to a capacity. But it's like people can have the information or they don't want it. They can have it or leave it. And sometimes people will say no, and then you're like, okay, great, my contract's done. They don't want the
Yeah.
information. I'm not going to pass it on. And I guess the other flip side of that is there's also that intuitive part of you. It's like, I need more. Like you can't just, because there's so many false energies that come forward too. And it's
Yes.
like, we need better proof of this is actually you, or this is what's really coming through. And for anyone listening to this, you'd be surprised how many fake people show up, or how many fake spirits show up, or fake entities, or fake galactics, or whatever you want to put in there. But it's amazing how much it can be misconstrued, and why we are really careful sharing big messages, because we want to make sure 100% it's true.
Yeah. And that the truth will survive the skepticism, which I think is basically what it is. Know of myself through my career of channeling some pretty prestigious people has always been skepticism. When Einstein showed up, it was like, really? Albert Einstein? And this is what you're saying as a unified field? But the truth survives skepticism, which is why skepticism is, I think, a very good tool. And so thank you for reminding me that the skepticism is on my part too. Okay, Charlie. Is it? Is it, Charlie? But what started to happen was every time he would come and say, let's do this. I really want to get this message to her. And I'd say, you got to get her to me. She started to share on her podcast, and she's a Catholic, but she's not a spiritual like us. She's very Catholic, but she has dreams. She and he had dreams. So there's a whole nother side of it. And she started to share that side of herself. And now by the time, I was listening just the other day, and she was sharing a lot of stories about Charlie that he had said in the channeling, the stuff that had come out in the channeling. So I feel like there's some sort of cooperative messaging going on between life and afterlife here.
Yeah, and I guess because our dreams are our easiest way for people to access our subconscious as well. And this is why dreams are so important. Like I said, with my nono, but also now happening in this parallel, like that's what I was channeling through. Great. Thank you. That's what I needed to hear. And it was like a watch this space thing, right? That's what I'm just getting. Watch this space. Space. And as we start to finish our time together, Barbara, I asked the guests that come on the show, if you could change or heal something in the world, what would it be?
It would be everything we're talking about today. It would be, I would inspire people to turn inward and to know that they have that power to do these things, that it's God-given. It's our God-given gift. Because I think when people start to give, not just want to receive, but see that flow, sort of like your husband, take the tip. It's a flow, and when people understand that their giving is part of their receiving, I think today that's kind of what I would change.
Beautiful. And if people want to come and have a reading with you, Barbara, or follow your work, where's the best place they can go?
You can go to barbarawith.com, and I think, because I've been so busy as a taxi driver, I think I still have my holiday special up. So 40% off a reading.
Amazing. And I'll put those details in the notes for everyone listening. So if this episode caused you to think about, hey, how do I want to show up differently in the world? Or if you are spiritual or have gifts, how can I share these differently in the world? I would love to hear. Feel free to comment, like, subscribe, or share if there's someone else you feel will like this episode. And Barbara, thank you again for being on the show and coming back again to be on the show. Truly appreciate you as a human.
Thank you so much, Catherine. Right back at you.
I wanted to have a chat with you about a really amazing cacao that I drink to help me get in ceremony, to help me ground, but also just because it tastes freaking good. So if you're curious and want to know about drinking something other than coffee or your standard tea, why not check out Creation Cacao? I love this with a bit of honey and cinnamon sprinkled in and just letting it brew and having that whole intention as you create this cup. So if you're curious about want to know more, check out the and enjoy your cup of cacao.
Thank you for listening to Willow Healing Matters, the podcast. We have so much love and gratitude that you have taken the time out of your day to empower you on your healing journey. The views shared by the person being interviewed might not necessarily reflect that of the host and should be used at your own discernment. Trust what resonates for you and follow your heart and soul guidance. If you have any underlying medical conditions or mental health issues, please consult with your healthcare provider before pursuing any of the recommendations. Likewise, you can always contact the person being interviewed to find out more information. This can be found in the show notes. Remember to activate, align, heal, empower, and find love in everything that you do.